William Hill sponsors Martin vs. Joshua on Sky Sports Box Office.
Radio Raheem here with David HAYE. David, the last time we spoke on camera, it's been quite a bit. I've seen you in person, but I mean, it was like you were still mending from your injury.
Okay.
And there was some doubt as to whether or not you would actually come back and how you felt. So there's been a lot has happened between now and then. Yeah. And now, not only in the spotlight, you're being chased around by, old fighters, and you've really come to where you were hoping at the time you could get back to. Can you just talk to me briefly about that journey, and not just physically, but mentally, to be able to resurge your career and be where you are now from where you were then?
Well, when any athlete has a sort of career-ending injury like I had, I had a full reconstructive surgery on my right shoulder, that's the right hand, the haymaker, the moneymaker. When that happens, doubts start creeping in. Am I going to be the same force I once was? And if my right hand isn't that good, is my left hand good enough to get me to where I need to get to? I'm not the biggest guy out there. I need to keep these big guys off me. I have to get their respect once I'm in the ring, and the only way to do that is with powerful punches. And when there's a possibility your right hand will never be the same again, you have dark times, you have low moments, but through sort of perseverance and through sort of a positive mental attitude, good rehab, good clean diet, you can build yourself back, and that's what I believe I did. And I was always focused. Obviously, you have your down moments, but in general, I'm a very positive person, and I believe my destiny is to regain the heavyweight championship of the world. So to do that, I need to be in tip-top condition. So I focus diligently on rehabilitation and making sure that all angles and all bases were covered in not only my rehabilitation but my future training, as a lot of the injuries I received in years gone by were mainly due to sort of improper training techniques, or doing the training that I once did 10, 15 years ago, and my body isn't the same as it was then. I'm sure Bernard Hopkins now has a different training program than he had when he was 25. And to incorporate, your age, your strengths, your weaknesses, your injuries, I had to be a lot more scientific with my approach to training and to boxing in general.
That coming through that mentality and having experienced what you have in the ring, that has to be an asset. But 35 in this sport is not a really young guy, and it's been 5 years since you had a shot at that big title from Klitschko. So when you look after your career and your personal health, what do you think is most important to bring from what you've learned from this experience into the ring if you're to get another shot at the big title like that?
All of the world title fights that I've had, I've learned a little something from them, whether it was actually in the ring or in training camp. I've always brought over good quality sparring partners. Maybe at some stage too good at sparring partners. I always brought over real killers, and I've learned my craft, the hard way. And when it comes to fighting these new champions, look at these guys here, Anthony Joshua and Charles Martin. One of these two guys are going to be the IBF champion, tomorrow night. And the way I see it, these guys are very inexperienced. They haven't seen what I've done and seen. I've been a professional fighter, for 14 years now. These guys were kids. And they were at school. So that wealth of experience will, I believe, give me a huge advantage, psychologically and tactically once that first bell rings against any of these young guys.
Now, there are two fights that seem to be on the horizon after the one you've already got coming up in June. If Anthony Joshua were to win this title, there'd be clamoring for maybe David HAYE versus Joshua, and then of course we've got Briggs chasing you all over the place trying to make that fight happen, which is a fan favorite. He gets fans riled up. Which of those fights are you most interested in, and does the Briggs fight really do anything for you?
At the moment, if Anthony Joshua, fingers crossed, does manage to rip this title from Martin, he said pretty publicly he wants to have an easy defence. He wants to have, fight a voluntary. His mandatory will be Joseph Parker. If Parker is to beat Carlos Takam in New Zealand, I believe, who are fighting on the same night as myself, May 21st. But in the interim, that'd mean that put him out of action or not in a situation to fight me till the end of the year. So in the interim, what is the biggest possible fight? And this big idiot running around screaming, "Let's go, champ!" I think it's a nice marking time fight. He's old, he can still punch a little bit, but I'm not in the habit of taking people's punches. I dish out the punishment, I rarely receive it. So someone of former 2-weight world champion, he's ranked number 4 by the WBA, so he's still hanging around. And the fans, strangely, I've been hearing more about Shannon Briggs than any other fighter. More people come up to me in the street and say, knock out Shannon Briggs, this guy's an idiot, you just shut him up. I think he's actually talked himself into a violent knockout defeat. He really has. He said to anyone to listen that he's coming to get David Haye, banging on my gym door, chasing people I know around. I got to knock him out.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about a decision like that from Anthony Joshua? I mean, people will say that he won the title from a guy who got it by default. If he then takes an easy fight, or, doesn't he kind of have to earn it then himself, take a tough fight to prove his mettle?
I don't think so. I think people will get it. He's a 15-fight novice, really. And he's happened to have a world title wrapped around his waist potentially tomorrow. So it'll be a 16-fight, fight boxer
right.
After tomorrow night if he's to win. And how many of those 16 fights would have been a world-class opposition? Charles Martin would be probably the only one. His last fight against Dylan White's a domestic class fighter. He hadn't fought anyone world-class at that point. And he lost by 8th round knockout. So I'd understand if he wanted to get a little bit more experience and wants to take an easy fight. Not an easy fight, but it's not a killer. He's not going to fight a David Haye or a Tyson Fury or someone or a Joseph Parker. If he takes someone who's ranked in the top 15 by the IBF, just to keep him busy, sell out an arena, earn some money, because he doesn't know when he does step up to that genuine world class with someone who is a former champion who's been there and done it, it may be his last fight. So I understand him wanting to earn some money while he's learning.
Now, the big prize in the heavyweight division is the titles that Fury is holding. Obviously, you faced Klitschko yourself. You try to get those titles. What do you think was the difference between what Fury was able to do and what you were not able to attain when you challenged for the heavyweight title in that fashion?
The first thing, when I fought Vladimir, he was throwing some punches. That was probably the main. that was the main issue for me. He was letting his hands go. He was very sharp. His footwork was good. His distance was great. And obviously, fast forward 5 years, he's 40 years old now. Fighting someone who's 35 and fighting someone who's 40 is a big difference. Particularly when that person has been fighting very regular, probably 3 times a year on average. There's a lot of fights in the bag that Vladimir's had, and I think he's come to the end of his run. He's run out of steam. He's had too many training camps. And
I think he's shot.
He looked pretty shot to me when he fought Tyson Fury. But that's not to take anything away from Tyson Fury. He still went there. He still did what he needed to do. He won the fight. But we'll find out in the rematch when that does actually happen. If it was Tyson Fury's superiority, or was it Vladimir Klitschko's sort of decline. I think it might be an element of both. I think maybe Vladimir Klitschko fighting someone who was for once bigger than himself, messed up his whole flow. He couldn't use his usual jab and grab tactics, and he was getting old. So now he needed to do something new. He put his foot down on the pedal. There was no gas. He just couldn't let his hands go. And it happens with fighters. We see it happen time and time again. Sooner or later, you keep going to the well, you're going to come up dry. Lastly,
if Fury is able to retain that title in a rematch, you just may be the sensible matchup. It may not be Joshua. They may not be ready for it. You've clearly got the experience. You've got the desire. If you were to be facing Fury, how do you think that fight would go? And what advantages do you have over him? How do you get that win?
If I was to end up in the ring with Tyson Fury, I'd knock him out in probably 3 or 4 rounds. His defense is very sloppy and he's too open for shots. I'm too fast. I'm way faster than he is. But it's irrelevant, really, because that fight will never happen.
Why?
Because it just won't happen. One of those things that just is not going to happen.
For no reason. Give me a reason.
He doesn't want to fight me, and genuinely, I don't really want to fight him.
Radio Raheem with David Haye. You're leaving nothing untold. I appreciate the time. Always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Glad to have you back in the ring, man. You'll be fighting June 5th.
May 21st.
May 21st, I'm sorry.
They go to Arena.
Don't miss that. Sky Sports, brought to you by William Hill. It's a pleasure, man. Thank you.